someone says always or never, it's probably not the right answer.
Yeah, straight A student, but I'm friends with the cool kids. Following the rules and the rubric. Freestyle on the bus.
Honey,
I mean,
if I'm
like,
sick,
is
that's it.
Is it like black tea or green tea or
Black,
like,
yeah.
what is
It's like the English breakfast, which I think just means black tea.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, no, you give off tea vibes, you know?
That is 100% an insult.
I don't mean it as an insult. You just give off tea vibes. I look at you and I just think, you know what? I think John drinks tea.
I need to change some things.
What else is new in your world, John?
Not much. Just studying. Been forced into like a deload week, which is probably good for my body. So
From training because you got sick?
yeah. So just gonna
Nice.
take it in stride and
Your
exam
grandfather
tomorrow.
was just telling me you hit like 75 miles on the bike the other day or something like that.
Rode
What was it?
80, 85 the other day,
When?
Saturday morning.
Okay. So I was gonna say that doesn't sound like a deload week.
Yeah, no,
How was that?
it was good. Just boring.
How long do we have until the full Ironman?
Well, it was 1 month from yesterday, so it's November 1st.
No way, you're that close already?
Yeah,
Oh shoot. Let's go.
I know. I'm
Are you
pretty
gonna make
stoked.
it?
There's really no world in which I don't finish,
Oh, okay.
so I'll be all right.
That's confident.
You have to be. If I'm gonna be doing something
I
for
like it.
13 hours, just be confident that I can do it. You know what I mean?
That's insane. That is so much. I'm also doing something unbelievably hard in the near future. Similar realm. I have a 5K on Sunday, so we're like
This
the
is
same.
huge.
Yeah,
Pretty much, yeah.
You have a full Ironman, and I have a 5K. We're like the same person.
I think so.
I'm gonna assume the most of the people who are gonna listen to this don't know what all a full Ironman entails because they're like me and like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, but like I actually had no idea what was encompassed or what was involved with that. So can you tell us what all a full Ironman consists of?
Yeah. So it's a 2.4 mile swim, and then you jump on the bike for 112 miles, and then you run 26.2 miles to cap it off.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's a long
But
day.
yeah, I have a 5K, so we're the same.
Pretty much.
I'm fired up for you though. I'll be tuned in. Make sure you send me the link beforehand.
We'll do.
Okay, we need juice. The vibes are not there right now. You're sick. I am a little tired. Got out of here session at like 9 last night, and then had our sessions started at 6 a.m. this morning. So I'm a little tired, but we need to bring some juice. We need to bring some energy to the pod. So what's gonna get us fired up?
I mean, I can turn it on like a switch, so I don't really need something. But
No, I don't think you can. I don't think you can. The people are saying we need more energy from John.
for someone who's
People are
worked,
saying.
I've worked for you now for 3 years. I feel like I've come in some days in some bad moods, and no one else can tell.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. But we
Call me
need
a microwave. I get
energy.
hot fast. All right, I'm ready.
All right, let's go for it then. Give me a question. Let's roll.
All right, let's jump right into it. So we are starting off today with some basketball questions. Basketball tryouts are coming up. I feel strong from lifting this summer, but my first step still feels slow. What are the absolute best drills to improve first step quickness and explosiveness off the dribble in this final month before tryouts?
All right. I feel like in most of these questions, I answer in some overly vague ways just because it is kind of the same things over and over and over again for sometimes. But I'm going to be hyper specific to be a little bit more actionable for this young man or woman who is presumably a high school basketball player with trials coming up. So I'm glad you've been lifting, glad you've been taking care of that element of things. And now we want to make that strength and we want to apply it in some more specific realms. So we want to take that strength you developed and now apply it faster. And we want to apply it in the correct angles to improve your first step quickness. So sled sprints are the number one thing that I would go to for that first step quickness. And so when you go from zero movement whatsoever to moving as fast as you possibly can, that is starting strength. And the best thing for developing starting strength, in my opinion, is resisted accelerations, which is a sled sprint. So I would get a sled and start doing some acceleration work with that. You can actually make your own sled. I think I've talked about this before. You just need a tire, a couple planks of wood, a little eye hook, and a rope, and then you're golden. You can make your own sled. It's really cost effective. And I say a tire, I mean you can go to like a local tire shop and you could ask for one of their old tires, whatever those are called. They'll give them to you for free, especially if you're a high school kid. And yeah, you can make your own sled. So sled sprints. And then one thing I really like for teaching shin angles, I'm doing a lot more of in the past year and a half, are tall kneel accels. And so that's whenever you're on two knees and you are completely upright from that position. So you are on both knees, but your hips are completely extended, your chest is straight up in the air, and then you have to get up and sprint out as fast as you can, but you cannot have one knee come up before the other one, and you can't bend your hips before you get off the ground. So it makes it really hard to be able to get up immediately. But once you, so I'm sorry. So it makes it very hard to get up. But what happens when you do get up is you are in some really horizontal shin angles. So it's a way to teach how to get those shin angles very horizontal, and you have to apply that force really quickly to get out of it, or else you're going to fall down. So the first time you do this, you're probably going to fall over, you're probably going to feel uncoordinated, but that's kind of the objective here, is you're getting so horizontal that initially you don't know how to handle that and you're going to start falling over a little bit. Once you learn how to apply that force a little bit quicker, after you get some more repetitions, then you're able to stay upright and really accelerate out well. So those are the two things I would say I would really hone in on. Obviously, continue getting stronger. Make sure you're getting stronger on one leg, but do some accelerated or some resistive acceleration. So some sled sprints, follow those up with some unresisted sprints, and then make sure you're dosing in some tall kneel accels. And you can actually do some tall kneel accels with a dribble as well. So you just kind of bring the ball with you, and then it comes ultra sport specific, and not that that's absolutely necessary, but it can be helpful to learn how to bring that ball with you. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that was kind of everything I've expected you to say for that answer. But I have a quick question just to follow up on that. We've talked about shin angles before. What is the purpose and like what are we getting out of having a better shin angle in our sprint, in our first step? How is that actually making us quicker?
all right, if you're asking this question, you better know the answer to the question you know what question I'm about to ask you as a follow-up.
I
What
hope so.
is Newton's third law?
My goodness, I get them all confused. So what? The second
No.
one's entropy. We learned that one in mass transfer. Third one is equal opposite reactions.
There we go. Okay, so Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you are trying to sprint, you're trying to accelerate, you're trying to improve that first step quickness, you're trying to move your body horizontally in space. You're trying to move forward in space. You're not trying to go up or down. You're trying to go horizontally. You're trying to go forward. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We move from the ground reaction force that we get after we press into the ground. So if you push into the ground applies an equal and opposite reaction force to you, and that's what helps you go the direction that you want to go. Your shin angles serve as a proxy for how your force is being applied into the ground. If your shins are straight up and straight down when you go to sprint, that means your force is likely going pretty straight up and straight down, and your body is then going to pop straight up and straight down. Remember, we're not trying to go straight up and straight down. We're trying to go horizontal. So if you get your shin angles more horizontal, then you're going to apply more force horizontally into the ground. The ground's going to push back more horizontally, and you're going to go out further and faster than you would otherwise. So the shin angles just serve as a proxy for what angle you're putting force into the ground at.
Got it. And Zach, I have some bad news, but that is mass transfer. So that sounds like a lifelong skill to me personally.
I never took mass transfer. That just sounds like basic Newtonian physics to me. I beg to differ.
We'll agree to disagree. All right. Well, we hit everything on that question, I think. So we're going to jump into the next one here. My son keeps getting debilitating cramps in his calves and hamstrings in the second half of his football games, even though he hydrates constantly. What are we missing from a nutrition or fueling standpoint that could be causing this?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I have the correct answer for you. I can throw some stuff out there, but cramping is such a multifactorial thing that you never know exactly what the underlying issue or the causative factor is. So from a nutrition or fueling standpoint, if you're taking care of just like the pure water side of things, then maybe start adding in something that has some electrolytes in it. That could be your first line of defense. And so there's a reason that sports drinks like Gatorade and Powerade exist. It's for moments like this because you are in high intensity effort, you're in a high intensity exercise. You need the electrolytes and the glucose to be able to refuel your system. So if you're just using water, then maybe we start using a sports drink to hydrate. Maybe we preemptively load up with some electrolytes earlier in the day. Maybe it's a magnesium supplement nightly that can help with sleep, and it can also help reduce cramping sometimes. But it also could just be purely a load management issue. If you're a small school football player and you're playing both ways, then you just might have too much load that your body can't handle. So that could be a conditioning factor from early on in the season. I would expect it would go away the more you play because you're getting into the later half of the season. Your body's going to get more acclimated to the loads that you're going through. I actually was not a big cramper in games, but in high school, again, I played at a small school, so I played both ways, never came off the field. After every single game, we would go to Eaton Park, and I would catch a hamstring cramp every single time. My family to this day thinks it's absolutely hilarious because you'd see me just get up out of the booth and waddle around like I just pooped my pants or something. And it was just something that was always going to be there because I played both ways. I played really hard, never came off the field. Sometimes that's just going to be the case. So I would start with the low-hanging fruit of a sports drink, then maybe consider electrolyte packets earlier in the day, then maybe consider a magnesium supplement nightly, and then after that, I would just look at total volume that we're undertaking and see if there's a variable that you can manipulate there. Maybe you come off of kick return, or maybe you come off of punt return, or maybe you come off of all special teams, or whatever it may be.
So Zach, let's say this player gets through the season and they're wanting to try to avoid this for the next season. What could they do in the off season just to, and let's say this is an overloading problem. What could this player do to like increase that workload that they're capable of doing to kind of avoid these cramps?
Yeah, you're going to want to reverse engineer the conditioning process. And so you want to start with the end goal in mind. Try to figure out how much yardage you're actually accumulating during your games this year. And so you're going to have film. That's kind of the nice part about football is you have film and you have specific yardage markers. So you know basically how far you move on every single play that you have, and you can gauge your intensity. So I would just track one of your highest intensity games, and I would go through each and every play. And I would look at myself and I would say, hey, I ran this far, and I would gauge my intensity based off of what percentage I think I was running at and mark that down and do that for every single play that you're in. And so that is your barometer for what you're working up to. That is the end goal that we're reverse engineering from. And then you're going to take that, and then in the, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks leading up to camp, you're going to progressively work up to that marker. So maybe you start with 30 to 50% of the volume that you're going to get to, and then you progressively build up to that full 100%, whatever the highest volume, so total yardage that you go through is, and you kind of break that down into sprints that are reminiscent of your actual distances that you go through on game day. So that might be a couple 100-yard sprints. That might be a lot of 60s, a lot of 40s, a lot of 30s, a lot of 20s, a lot of 10s, and you just build up so that way you get as specific as you possibly can with the demands you're going to have on game day. The one caveat there is for a lot of athletes, we want to build up to our game day loads, but your peak loads that you're going to experience throughout the entire calendar year are actually normally during training camp. And so you might have to add a buffer window there where you have to be prepared for even more than that just to be prepared for camp itself. And so maybe you take your total yardage, you take your volume, and you add 10% to that, just so you can be prepared for camp itself. And then camp should then prepare you further for game day.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to roll into the next question here. My fall baseball season is done. My main goal this winter is to increase my bat speed and exit velocity. What are the top 3 most important exercises for developing powerful rotation that I should build my program around?
I like it. So I would start. I hate to give the basic answer so much, John, but it's the basics. Like, you have to get really strong. Nothing works unless you don't get strong first. And so strength is the rising tide that lifts all ships. So we need to get you really strong in all 4 patterns. So we need to get you really strong in a press, really strong in a row, really strong in a squat, really strong in a hinge. When it comes to bat speed and exit velo, the thing that matters the most out of all those patterns would probably be the hinge, because that is the pattern that's most reminiscent of what happens during a swing. There's a lot of hinging that goes on, a lot of posterior chain activation. So if we're going to really prioritize something, I would choose either a trap bar deadlift or a RDL as like, hey, that's the one we really want to see move the needle on. But then, so I pick one of those, either trap bar deadlift or RDLs. You could cycle both of them in there. They're not mutually exclusive. From a squat standpoint, I would reverse lunge or some sort of bilateral squat pattern of your choice. I'm a fan of a safety bar squat for reasons we could get into or not get into. But there's also Zerchers, front rack, back squats. So something along those lines. But then outside of that, you can add in some med ball rotational work. So get some med balls and then work on what we call our rotational shot put, some scoop tosses, build up some speed with the behind the back steps, whatever it may be. Just those will be my answers for you. If I'm going to try to be as simplistic and actionable as possible, I would say either trap bar deadlift or RDL, one of those two. And then if you're getting, since those are both bilateral, I'm going to choose a reverse lunge so that we have some sort of unilateral development. And then the last one will be some med ball rotational work.
Got I feel like a lot of these questions, everyone's looking for the top 3. Like, what's the best bang for my buck that I can get? In like your opinion and what you've seen, is building these programs around just like one idea of rotational power. I know that's kind of what we focus on sometimes in the gym. Like, we treat our baseball players different than we treat our football players. But how much of that difference should it be where we're training sport specific, this rotational power versus just general strength, general quickness?
Yeah, it's 80-20 or 90-10, depending on how you really want to look at it. Meaning like 80% of the stuff's going to be the same, or 90% of the stuff may be the same. There are differences. I'm not going to say that we just train our baseball players like our football players. Like, I want to be more deliberate about arm care with our baseball players. I want to be more deliberate about maintaining rotational capacity and increasing rotational capacity with our baseball players. I want to be more deliberate about making sure that we have neck care or more armor building with our football players. And so it comes down to, hey, 80% of it, your main money items are going to look really similar. I want you to get really strong. I want you to get really strong on one leg. I want you to get really strong in a squat, press, hinge, row. I want you to get really fast. So I want you to develop starting strength. I want you to develop your early acceleration capabilities. I want you to develop some max velo capabilities. I want you to develop vertical jumping power. I want you to be able to develop some eccentric controls. And so that's going to be some horizontal jumping and some braking, deceleration, change of direction work. That stuff is all going to be pretty much the same. I'm not going to be as deliberate about including rotational med ball work with our football players. We'll do it, but it's not as high of a priority as it is for a truly off-season baseball player. So I'd say 80-20, 90-10 is kind of where we land. It's more about the individual than it is about the sport itself. Like, what are their glaring deficits and what are their demands going to be whenever it comes time for their preferred sports and activities?
All right, we're going to roll into our next question here. I'm trying to play through a high ankle sprain late in our football season. Taping it helps, but I've completely lost my ability to cut hard. Are there specific exercises I can do to regain that lateral power, or am I just making it worse for playoffs?
Yeah, there aren't really going to be specific exercises I could give you to go over all this right now. And I guess maybe this is a good time for all these questions, for everything in this episode. None of this is medical advice. This is just general question and answers. Do not take any of this as medical advice. Seek professional help from a healthcare professional for you or your athlete if you're listening to this. So always have to add that disclaimer. But if somebody has a high ankle sprain, tape it, brace it. It's hard this time of year. Some of that stuff is going to be stuff you just have to play through. I mean, we're coming up on playoff season, no matter where you're at in high school football right now. Basically, every sport you're coming towards the back half of your season, and for most of those, even if it's not playoffs right now, you're fighting for a playoff spot or you're fighting for playoff positioning. So it's kind of hard to really miss any of this stuff right now. So I mean, that's the hardest part about football is you have to play through a lot of stuff. It's all about who's the toughest athlete, who are the toughest individuals. It's not about who is the most athletic all the time. It is a really unique sport and the physical demands and the mental toughness demands that come along with it. But there's some stuff that you can do. If you're still relatively early on in your recovery, you have a lot of swelling in there. I really encourage trying to get swelling out of there as much as possible. So during any times where you're not moving around, try to compress it. So get a compression sleeve or compression wrap. So during school times, whenever you're just kind of sitting around, make sure you have it compressed during your sleep time. So overnight, or if you're taking your naps, make sure you have it compressed. Anytime where you're not moving around, your muscles aren't actively serving as a pump to get fluid to the rest of your body. Make sure you have it compressed so that way swelling doesn't get too aggressive. That can be a low-hanging fruit that can pay dividends. Try to move it early and often, so work it out throughout the day. Just go through your alphabet, your ankle ABCs, whatnot. Relatively bland, relatively boring, but it's something that can help blood flow through the area. It can help keep and improve some range of motion. Try not to do too much or too little on it during times that are not necessary. And if you are playing through a high ankle sprain, then you're probably relatively important to your team. So your coach should have a high degree of uh, ability to adapt around your practice schedule, meaning that, like, hey, we don't really need to go too hard in practice this time of year. Like, you're not going to get physically more developed if you can't um, execute. If you haven't shown the physical development stuff yet, you're not going to now. And so it's all about cerebral. Do you understand the tactics that you're trying to apply? So you can mentally get reps in without having to go super aggressive during practice. So save those reps for game days and don't baby it throughout the entire day. Don't just like walk on crutches and put no load on it and then try to go out there and play on game day. Kind of be in that Goldilocks realm where, like, if it gets a little bit irritated throughout the day walking, that's fine. That's going to help it heal a little bit faster if you keep moving, you keep putting load through it, as opposed to if you just completely babied it and stayed off it entirely all the time. But also don't be crazy and just let it get absurdly flared up and let that swelling get aggressive, because then you're just setting yourself back. So compress it, find the Goldilocks from a load perspective. Make sure you are strategic about when you have your high aggressive loads. Practice is not necessarily a physical development at this time of year. Just get your mental reps in, tape it up, and may the odds be ever in your favor.
Yeah, I think reading this question, I had two follow-ups that came into my mind. I've heard throughout all of high school, throughout all of middle school, about RICE, this rest, ice, compression, elevation. I know that we're really moving away. I know you have a newsletter on this topic. I was wondering if you could kind of dive into that more and why people are moving away from this little 4-letter acronym that we have here that typically was ankle sprain, I feel like just central.
Yeah, and so rice served us well for a period of time, but I do think that it's a bit antiquated at this point in time. People are always into divisive ends of the continuum. People went from being, hey, make sure you ice it, make sure you rest it, to you should never ice, you should never rest. And guess what? The answer that is probably the most logical and effective is somewhere in the middle. So the new acronym that people are going off of, which I find helpful, is POLICE. So protection, optimal loading, ice, compression, elevation. So protection, basically, you just want to make sure there's nothing that's going to further injure you early on, meaning that, like, don't let people run into you. Don't go taking any crazy risks. Don't put yourself at a fall risk. So just protect the area. That's what your bracing is going to do. if you're in a busy area, if you have some sort of acute injury, there's not a lot of braces that actually have a high degree of effect for a specific injury. There are some, so I'm not going to be completely anti-brace, but I do encourage people to wear braces relatively early on for most injuries, just because it signals to the outside world, hey, I've got something going on here. Stay away from me. Be a little bit careful with me. So if you have a knee injury, so let's say you dislocated your patella, like that brace isn't going to do much for you when you're just walking around throughout the day. It's not like you're at risk of just redislocating your patella. But it does signal to the rest of the world, like, hey, I hurt myself. Don't bump into me. Be careful with me, so that way something doesn't happen. So protect it. The most important part that's been the addition here is this optimal loading side of things. So you want to put load through it. The earlier you put load through it, that's appropriate for it, the better outcomes you'll get. If you stay too conservative too long, you're just going to prolong your recovery timeline and you're going to have some lingering effects. And so you want to have optimal loading. You want to stay in that Goldilocks zone, like I talked about a little bit earlier. Ice, there are some people out there, some healthcare professionals and strength coaches who are like, you should never ice anything. Their rationale behind that is because inflammation is good. And inflammation is good. So inflammation is very important to clear up the injured site and to signal, hey, we're ready for wound healing. We're ready for the new tissue to start getting laid down. It's really, really important. However, too much inflammation is a bad thing. So ice, one, if it did actually decrease inflammation significantly, then it can be a helpful thing if inflammation is too much. However, there's not enough evidence to even say that ice actually has a negative effect on the amount of inflammation that presents. Like, I don't actually think that icing it really reduces the amount of inflammation that presents after an injury. What ice does is it helps just numb the pain. If you're in a lot of pain and icing makes the pain less for a period of time, and you want to feel less pain for a period of time, then ice the injury. It's not that big of a deal. People make way too big a deal out of ice. Should you ice? Should you not ice? When should you ice? How long should you ice for? If you have some pain and you're just laying around and you want to not feel pain, then put some ice on it. If you're about to exercise, don't put ice on it right beforehand. If you just got done exercising, you're a little bit flared up, put some ice on it. It's not going to make or break you. It's not going to slow down inflammation significantly to slow down the healing process, and it's not going to make a big difference on either end there. It's not some secret sauce, and it's not some very destructive thing that you're putting on top of it. Then compress it. Compression, I think, is really important to help try to manage the swelling during times where you're not active. If you're moving around, the compression's probably not doing too much. The muscle pump's taking care of that. But during times whenever you're just super sedentary for a long period of time, like sleeping or throughout the school day, that's helpful. And then you can elevate it to help reduce some of that swelling as well. But yeah.
Zach, you want to know the number one most applicable thing I learned from the SAT?
No, I don't. Well, actually, I do want to know. I don't know what it is, though. Yes,
I'm jumping into my nerd bag here. But if someone says always or never, it's probably not the right answer.
I actually, yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Like apps, I actually, in my training manual that I made in like 2020, whenever I was first starting the business, let me pull up the exact quote I have at the beginning.
It's just a hack for any test you're taking.
Caution, there are no absolutes. Humans have discovered more about the intricacies of God's creation than we previously could have ever fathomed, yet we would be deluding ourselves if we believed that we have done any more than simply scratch the surface. With that in mind, it is important to emphasize that the materials in these documents are fluid. There are mostly no absolutes when discussing human performance and the multitude of variables that must come together for success. The willingness to accept personal error and adjust the presentation of new information is necessary for producing optimal outcomes. The systems presented are the best we could develop with our current information, but they are by no means perfect. Human performance is too complex to systematize with perfect precision. Nevertheless, they serve as a fantastic way to synthesize and organize the information we are presented with in order to have the effect we wish to impose. So yeah, at the beginning, the very first thing that pops up on my training system manual is there are no absolutes, which is kind of funny to say because I'm absolutely stating that there are no absolutes, which makes me a bit of a hypocrite. But I kind of just like the irony of that statement. But yeah, so I couldn't agree more, man. I do have some thoughts on that though. We as humans want absolutes. We want clear-cut answers so bad that those who speak in absolutes become highly effective marketers, and their ideas take priority in convoluted systems. And so this whole AI school thing that I've been, going down into this realm, the guy who is the most prominent proponent of it right now speaks in these very clear absolutes, definitive natures, and obviously that cannot be the case. Like, the numbers that he's putting out there and the certitude that he has whenever he's making these statements cannot be 100%. Like, there's just no logical way for that to be the case. Absolutes do not exist, which presents as guruism, which is off-putting to me because of obviously what we're talking about now. However, it's so effective at getting the message out there. And like, I do think that is the next evolution of education. I think it's going to be very powerful and important. And if he wasn't speaking with such high degree of certitude, like, would we then follow through and be as interested in the ideas that he's presenting? So like, how do you balance that? Like, hey, I have an important idea and I want to get it out to the world, while also staying true to intellectual honesty and acknowledging that gray areas do exist. You know what I'm saying?
Do. And I feel like it's easy to sit here and say the ends never justify the means. That's definitely a value that I feel like we want to hold. But when you need to go viral on social media to get all of your ideas out there, you're probably going to start saying never and always. You're not going to lead off by saying, I can probably make you stronger. I can probably make you faster. You're going to get up there and say, I can make you stronger doing this, this, and this, because that's what people want to hear. That's what they're going to click on. That's what they're going to watch.
Yeah. And you think about all the people who are large influencers in the information age, and most of them do have a high degree of certitude. And I call this like guruism, where they're just absurdly confident in the ideas and the frameworks that they put out there. The one person who comes to mind instantly who doesn't fall into that realm, who you and I both have a great appreciation for their work, is Peter Attia. If you listen to the way that he talks, like, there's a lot of nuance and gray areas, and he's very articulate about there are no absolutes. Like, he's very very good about navigating that realm. And I could be mistaken here, so I'm sorry, Dr. Peter Attia, if I misframe you here, but I'm pretty sure he started out as a guru type of person in the nutritional world, being essentially anti-carbohydrate. I could be mistaken there, but I know he started out with some pretty strong nutritional frameworks that he now disagrees with himself. And so I don't know if it was keto or what it was, but he got his name out there. He became who he was by being more absolutist in nature. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I almost want to say it was about the fasting that sticks out to me with Peter Attia. He used to once a quarter go on these 48-hour, 72-hour fasts. And that's, I think, what stuck out to me, but it could have been the keto thing as well. And it's hard because you almost have to go to an extreme just to be able to get your message out there, to then reel it back and say, this is what I really think now that you're all listening to me.
Yeah. And so I've spoken to you, like, my objective here, what I would love to do is what Peter T is doing for longevity, I would like to do for athlete development. So I love that he has a clinical practice. I will never give up my actual facility where we train and rehab athletes. But I do like his expanding the field with more progressive frameworks, his Medicine 3.0 frameworks, and the information products that he puts out, meaning like he writes books, he has his newsletter, he has his podcast, and he's helped educating the masses instead of just focusing on his local area and the people that he serves as a clinician. But in order to get that second step, I have this like mental barrier where it's like, hey man, like, do I start making these absolutist contradictory statements, or I'm sorry, contrarian statements, in order to get more relevancy in the online circles, to be able to then serve a greater purpose and make the FEC model more popular. So that way we have a more deliberate, meaningful, impactful athlete development process. Do I intentionally be somebody who I'm not and be a little bit more, sharp edged, a little bit more contrarian, a little bit more, I don't know, irritating to people, but also absolutist in that like I make promises that I maybe don't believe in. I can't actually do that. I don't have the ethical boundary, or I don't have the ethical bandwidth to be able to do that. Like I still lose sleep over something I did wrong in second grade. Like I just have the most heavy conscience in the world. But if I want to get to the spot that I want to do to have the impact that I want to have, like how do we make that happen in a way that isn't absolutist in nature?
I think these days it's a lot easier to, I think being absolutist is absolutely the easy way to get to the top. But I also feel like you can find examples of people who haven't taken that route. And I mean, I'm sitting here with not a single person to name off the top of my head. So that's probably part of the problem. But I
Yeah.
refuse to believe that at this day and age, there's not a way to get to the top in an ethical and a way that you feel good about. I just refuse to believe that that's the case in 2025 in America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to find a way to do it, but it's just it's a interesting conundrum to try to work through. Yeah, he first gained attention in the early 2010s with his blog, The Eating Academy, where he wrote about nutrition topics, including his own experience with the ketogenic diet. And so
There you go.
he was pretty heavy, like, hey, keto is the way to eat, keto is this, keto is that, and that's how he got his name out there. And then, like, if you actually hear him talk about nutrition nowadays, he's always like, I hate talking about nutrition, because the answer is much simpler than it was uh, back in the day for him. It's just, hey, the research is pretty clear. If you control the amount of calories that you intake, you eat high quality protein, like all that other stuff, doesn't make a big difference. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Yeah. One quick thing going back to the rice question. You talked about the patella dislocation. Did you see Tyreek Hill's leg?
Yeah, that's a lot more than a patella dislocation. I actually didn't
I was
see it.
gonna
I heard about
say,
it though. So
I
there's a
just
difference.
saw it.
Let me
It's
just bring it up now. But yeah, so there's a knee dislocation, was what I believe he had, because I didn't watch. And then there's a patella dislocation. A knee dislocation is so much worse than a patella dislocation. Patella is just where your kneecap slides out of place. It's not fun. Like, that's not a fun injury in of itself, but it is not your actual fibula and tibia dislocating from your femur. Like, that is a whole nother level. You essentially at that point rupture everything in and around the knee. So that's a major one.
yeah. I was curious. I'm assuming it's adrenaline and maybe it's just as cut and dry as that, but he was smiling, waving, talking. How does that happen after something like that?
So we have different levels to our muscle strains or ligament sprains. And basically, once you completely dissociate something, it becomes relatively pain free because there's not the nerve conduction to be able to actually experience the pain anymore. And so, I'm not saying that's what happened with him. It's not like I don't know the extent of like nerve damage that was involved with it as well. But something that's completely uh, severed, something that no longer has connection, is typically going to be less painful than something that has like a partial tear, because you no longer have that same level of sensory input that you had previously. So obviously adrenaline would probably play a big role as well, but no, yeah, if you have, like, one of our things we learn in PT school is that if you have like no range of motion and it's pain free, then it's like, oh, you probably have a high grade injury here that you're dealing with.
Got it. All right, Zach, I think we're about out of time.
All right. We'll cut it there. So if you have not already, please go subscribe to the newsletter. I actually have a question for you and everybody listening here. I'm probably going to put this as a question in the next newsletter. I have two domains. My first one that I ever bought was gtperformancecenter.com, but then I shifted over to gtperformance.co. So I have gtperformancecenter.com and gtperformance.co. Which one do you think is more legitimate and professional, and would you be more interested or more likely to subscribe to whenever the newsletter is presented? Because I can't afford GTperformance.co. We've talked about that. Like, that's just not on the table. But I'm sorry, GTperformance.com. But what happens with GTperformance.co is a lot of people will just put in .com. I'll miss emails sometimes, and then if you see .co, maybe it doesn't hold the same level of legitimacy. But GTperformanceCenter.com is so long to type in. Like, that's just so many letters to type in. So which one do you find offer up? Which one would you be more likely to subscribe to? GTperformance.co or GTperformanceCenter.com?
Personally, I think the .com, and honestly, the longer name just feels more official. And there's no excuse for someone putting .co instead of .com.
All right, so go to gtperformancecenter.com/newsletter, subscribe. I've been sending out a weekly newsletter about your mind, body, soul for athlete development. So something to get you in the right mental framework to be able to perform at your highest level, something about physical development to be able to perform at your highest level or rehab, and then something about developing who you are as a human being to be able to exist at the highest level possible. So go ahead, subscribe, and make sure you subscribe to your this podcast wherever you get your podcast at. Anything else to add, Mr. John?
I think we hit it all.
Right, until next time, go be great out there.
Yeah, straight A student, but I'm friends with the cool kids. Following the rules and the rubric.